Now we're streaming live on YouTube. The audio, very important part of a radio show, and now available to you, streaming live on the YouTubes. Hope everyone's having a great Friday. Very good to be out at District E here at Capital One Arena, Gallery Place. Interesting to be here after the week that has been. Today on the show, we will hear from two Monumental executives on the topic of leaving this place for the Washington Wizards. Jim Van Stone, who has been on a couple of shows over the last couple of days, will join us. I talked to Jim this morning, and the conversation was very, very insightful. I do think that there's just going to be a reality for a lot of us who don't like this decision that there is no satisfactory answer. Someone can't say something that is not true. Hey, actually, you make some great points, Craig. All your callers that have said all these smart things, all the columnists, all the opinion folks, like you guys are all right. We're actually going to let the Wizards stay. That's not what you're going to get out of these interviews, but you do get some commitments to the district and some admissions. I think that this is still a work in progress in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of work to do. And along those lines, who better to talk about basketball in the district than John Thompson III? So JT3 is going to stop by. We're nailing down the time on that right now. But since we are here at District E, at Gallery Place, on the night that the Boundary Stone Court gets revealed, we will talk to JT3 coming up at some point during the show. It is a Football Friday presented by your local Honda dealer as well. So, Anthony, I say we start with a little football before we get into the rest of the basketball stuff, and not really the basketball stuff, the moving stuff. And because it's Friday, we're supposed to ask what's at stake for the Commanders against the Rams. You got anything over there?
That's at stake for the Commanders?
Yeah.
I would say just draft position, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's really –
Is that what we're going to do for the next 4 weeks on Fridays? If so, I think we need a better segment.
Yeah.
Because realistically, what's at stake? Draft position. What's at stake? Sam Howell's future. Those two things are tied. I will say this along those lines. One of the key questions I seek to answer between – well, really, I mean, the team needs to answer this between now and April, but I would like to have a better answer on it by the end of February, like end of Combine. And who knows if I'll be – I hope to go out to Indy again, but, you know, if not, the workouts will happen without me. But one of the things that I would like to understand is how many quarterbacks are better than Sam Howell in this draft, right? Not what Sam Howell was as a prospect, but like we've seen 2 years of Sam in the league. Specifically, we've seen this year of Sam in the league. How many guys in this draft are worth taking in this quarterback class that could have 4 guys go in the top 10 and as many as 6 probably go in the first round, depending on where Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. go. But we talked to Matt Miller yesterday of ESPN on Take Command, and depending on how some things shake out in the show, you might hear some of that interview. But certainly worth a listen in full on the Take Command podcast when you're done listening to this radio show and not a moment before. But he's only got one. Like, spoiler alert, he said if you can get your hands on Caleb Williams, you should take Caleb Williams. But even Drake May, who some people are going to wind up rating over Caleb Williams in this draft, and Jaden Daniels, who Matt Miller is like, he's like, I am the biggest Jaden Daniels fan you're going to find. I wouldn't draft him over Sam. And I think that's pretty fascinating. And I think one of the things to keep in mind over the next couple of weeks is not only can Sam solidify his future as the Commanders quarterback for at least next year by performing well, but if he messes around and wins a game or two, then it's basically going to be locked because anyone who could be a better quarterback than him isn't going to be within reach. And right now at number 4, there's a chance at least that you could take one if they fall. And I think Jaden Daniels and J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan, LSU and Michigan respectively, are going to be available. But you also, obviously, the higher you are, the easier it is and the less it costs to trade up if you even wanted to go get Drake May or make a giant swing at Caleb Williams at 1.
Yeah, and that's what we're evaluating or have been evaluating like all season. To be honest, could Sam be, our franchise QB? And I think if he goes out here and wins a couple of games against some really good defenses, like the Rams may not necessarily be one of the better defenses, but the Jets, the Cowboys, and then the 49ers, they're all top 5. So it's more so if he goes out here and showcases that he can actually win games, because again, you're judged by wins and losses in the NFL. And this season, we necessarily haven't been able to, win a lot of games and capitalize on in some of those moments. So if he goes out here and definitely puts up some good numbers, and I think that's ultimately what we want. We want, well, I can't say everybody because everybody's not a Sam Howell fan, but I'm rooting for Sam. I think he can be the guy. I want Sam to go out here and do as well as he can the next couple of weeks, and the defense continue to do what they've done all season long. That's give up huge plays and ultimately help us lose games. And,
offense good, defense bad.
Exactly. That's what I want. I want us to keep our top 5 draft pick right now. Let Sam go out there and build around him, and I think we can be in position to contend in a year or 2.
You said something that sparked a thought for me, which is if you're a Commanders fan, you should be a Sam Howell fan, because the best thing for this franchise is him being great, and you're able to build around him. I thought another thing that was interesting from the Matt Miller chat is he said he's got 3 guys in his top tier. And if you guys remember, like, how drafting really works, right? The way that Logan and I do this, the way Logan really does this, the way Matt Miller, the way that scouts, GMs, whatever, is they tier it out. And it's like, okay, we're not going to take a player in tier 2 based off need if there's still a tier 1 player available. And then, like, we judge on our ability to trade back with how deep the tier. Can we trade back and not drop down a tier? Like, those are kind of how this works. He's got 3 guys in tier 1 as we sit here in December. Now, granted, there's the entire scouting process, the interviews, the medicals, and some of these guys, that could matter a ton. Specifically, Olu Fashanu, the medicals, I'm pretty sure. Like, there's the edge kid from Latu from UCLA. His medical is going to matter a lot. There's some questions there. But he's got Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Olu Fashanu going as his top 3 guys, like, chart-wise, not necessarily by need. We know quarterbacks get pushed up. So everyone assumes that Williams and May go 1-2. And so all of a sudden, if you're at 4 and you got your choice of Harrison or Fashanu, you're getting one of the best players in the draft and a player that in a lot of other years would be a number 1 overall pick at left tackle if you go Fashanu, which is who I think they would go to, in part because I think Harrison will be gone. So that's a great outcome. The best possible outcome is Sam Howell proves he's great. These next are good enough that he's worth investing in and hopefully on a path to greatness over these next couple of games. And then Olu Fashanu is available for you at 4. There's your left tackle. And then, maybe you get lucky at the top of the second round with a really good edge player falling because of some of the other positions that are so stacked that you don't really need. Like, there could be 8 receivers that go in the first round in this draft. 8. You know what the Commanders don't need? A wide receiver.
Yeah.
Of course, if you get a great player, you get a great player. But and do they have like a 1-1, like a Jamar Chase? No. So if Marvin Harrison's available, you take Marvin Harrison. But outside of that, you spent 16 on Jahan Dotson a few years ago. You've signed Terry to big money. You don't need another receiver. But other teams do. Let them take him. Slide those tight ends down. Slide those edge players down. Slide those safeties down. Slide those whatever else down. And maybe even get like the best guard or one of the best guards in the draft at the top of the second round where you have 2 picks. So lots of opportunity potential for the Commanders. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, we'll circle back to the ongoing story of Monumental Sports taking their teams from right here at Capital One Arena out to Potomac Yards. Some of the things that I think are still lingering and worth discussing we'll get into before John Thompson III. I'm thinking he's going to join us at 4:30. He might join us. Actually, let me check my text real quick. Nope, I don't know yet. So JT3 might be at 4:30. He might be at 6, but we'll bounce things around. You will definitely hear from Jim Van Stone today. We got Take Command potentially, depending on how some of this stuff shakes out. 100% we're going around the NFL at 5:30. That's all still to come on the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Actually going to shift gears here. We'll get back to some of the monumental stuff, of course, as the show goes on. Jim Van Stone, COO and President of Business Operations of Monumental Sports. You'll hear my chat with him coming up in a little bit. Right now, though, Anthony, the one topic that I also wanted to get to today, big sports topic that we're not going to get a chance to do if we don't do it right now, is there's another opening in the NFL. Brandon Staley wiped out last night by the Las Vegas Raiders and then wiped out by his bosses today. And this is not surprising. Staley has been headed this way for a while as the Chargers have severely underperformed. He's now 24-24 with a roster that I think a lot of people think you should be winning 60-65% of your games with throughout his career. Obviously, last night he is stuck with Easton Stick at quarterback instead of Justin Herbert. That tends to matter. But I think the bigger issue is he was brought in a lot of ways to like turn Derwin James into the best player in the NFL, at least at his position. And it just hasn't happened. And like let Derwin James lead that defense to being incredible. Brandon Staley's kind of claim to fame before he got the Chargers job was he was the Rams defensive coordinator who really unlocked some of the stuff they did with Jalen Ramsey. He really had an innovative way of thinking about defense that was very offensive-minded, that it was like, how do we create matchups? You know, it's all the stuff that we talk about with offense. How do we use splits, formations, personnel to dictate? And he's like, what if we did that on defense? What if I took Jalen Ramsey and stuck him here and made you react to him? He's not going to be where you think he is. What if we use our fronts in a way to really make you do something you don't want to do? And it was pretty genius. And he comes from the Vic Fangio tree. He's someone that gave McVay fits in a way that Sean has talked about being really helpful when they had to remake that offense a couple years ago, post-Stafford or post-Goff trade with Matthew Stafford. And the practices were really hard because Brandon Staley's defense was really good. And it forced Sean to innovate and become better. And for that reason, I loved the hire. Everything I read about the guy was incredible. And it just hasn't worked. And so he'll get another job somewhere. He'll be someone's defensive coordinator. He'll do something. I doubt he gets another head coaching job right away, but who knows, 5 years from now, he's still very young. Does he get another shot? But I think that there is a consensus that this is now going to be the best job available in the NFL, and it could pull someone like a Dan Quinn out of Dallas, someone like a Ben Johnson out of Detroit, candidates who last year could have had jobs but turned them down. And we're like, nah, I think I'm good. I think I'm gonna wait till next year in the cycle. And that's obviously bad for Washington because you want less competition to get the top guys. But the one thing that I think is worth pointing out here is Washington to LA is not as unfair of a fight as I think people are going to make it out to be. And maybe I'm just being a homer here. I fully admit that obviously I know a lot more about the Washington situation than anybody else's situation. But I do think that what owner you work for matters. And the Spanos family is not good ownership out there. And Josh Harris is as good as it gets here, in part because people don't know where his flaws are yet. But certainly he's a guy that's going to pay people. There's the Sleeping Giant fan base. Josh is very involved in ways you want him to be involved and not involved in the ways you don't want him to be involved. So I do wonder, because like Bill Barnwell did his top 10 the other day, and he had Washington 7th out of 10. And I'm just like, I tend to think that Washington's going to be way higher on the list. And so I do still think that even though LA becomes available and becomes available early, that Washington has a chance to compete for the Ben Johnsons and others of the world, the top candidates that will be on the market.
Do you think, Washington's probably not as, I guess, highly coveted as say, a Chargers team because of how the Chargers are already positioned? Like, they have
yes.
On paper, they have a championship run. Like, they could.
Yeah,
they should
they've got Mack and Bosa,
yep.
and Derwin James and Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen's still great. Like, they've got dudes, and that's the thing that holds Washington back. They have no hyper.
They don't
like
have that.
Terry's great. John and Duran have been great. they have no elite players. Like, you have no one who's one of the 5 best guys at his position. You were wondering after last year if Duran could elevate to that, if John had elevated to that. I mean, John was an all-pro last year, so he was top whatever at the position. But you don't have that. But what you do have here is ultimate flexibility. And depending on, like, I think this is actually more appealing in that way to a GM than a coach. But, like, if I can literally build the roster from scratch and have the endorsement to do that from ownership and have no contracts that get in my way of doing that, the most onerous contract on the books for this team is Daron Payne's, who's, good. It's not a bad contract because he's a good football player. But is also, by the end of next year, a contract you could theoretically move on from. Like, that's pretty good shape compared to if you wanted to remake the Chargers for whatever reason. Justin Herbert's contract is got you locked in. Bosa's contract, I'm pretty sure, is locked in. Like, you got a lot of money on the books and not the same flexibility. Nevertheless, the draft capital that Washington has.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like, would you rather have already had your, roster compiled for you, or start from, like, ground zero where you're perhaps, building the roster up? And to be honest, I don't know. I like the Chargers roster.
I would too. Like, if I'm a coach, unless I talk to ownership there and I go, nah, I'm trying to be here. I'm trying to be a Belichick, where I'm in one place for 20 years.
Okay.
And I don't want to work for this dude for 20 years, which is not how most coaches think. Most coaches are like, I don't know, can I make it 5? Can I make it through this contract without getting fired? But realistically, if you are someone like a Ben Johnson or even a Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn's not that old. Dan Quinn's probably, in his 50s? Like, he could coach. That's when Belichick took over New England. So if I'm one of those guys and I go talk to Spanos and I'm like, this dude sucks, which I don't know if he does. I know there's a lot of people in San Diego who think he sucks, but as we've experienced here in this week in D.C., there's a lot of fans who have certain selfish views of ownership, right or wrong. But he hasn't been as successful as you think an owner with some of the players he's had, whatever has been. There's been some financial stuff over the years. Like, if you just look at Spanos and you're like, I don't know if this Chargers organization is really built for this. And you go talk to Josh Harris and you're like, this is the smartest dude I've ever met. That, to me, is the wild card here. Is, do you have a longer view? And because of that, do you look at the ownership situation that puts this job ahead of basically every other one that's going to be available, including the Bears with the number 1 pick and $100 million, and the Chargers with Herbert?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that the decision is either when you have your franchise quarterback already solidified.
100%.
They got that with, Justin Herbert. And, like, even some of the other teams that had head coaching changes, the Eagles, Nick Sirianni, he stepped into a great situation. Dan Campbell, he more so had to reshape.
I mean, but those guys took situations that didn't look as good as they were and made them.
Yeah.
And that could be this, this situation too. Here's Barnwell's list real quick. Bears is best because they're number 1 pick. Chargers second. He thinks the Falcons is going to come open and they would be third.
Ooh, okay.
They've got young talent. They're also in a bad division. That's his reason why. Jets. I don't think the Jets job is going to be open, and I wouldn't want it because ownership's a mess. Patriots. I don't know that I'd want to follow Belichick.
I don't like their roster.
Their roster's bad. They do have the number 2 pick right now. They do have stable ownership, although, I mean, I hate to say this, but Robert Kraft is old. Although Jonathan Kraft is very involved, his son. So you got the Kraft family. You have a lot of draft capital. And then they've got the Bucks. He says talent on both sides of the ball, no state income tax, easy division. Cons, no franchise quarterback, difficult cap situation. I'd rather be here than with the Bucks.
Yeah, and
but
also
the Bucks are they're interesting. But I think you're about to say Mike Evans is a free agent.
Yeah, he's about to be a free agent. So
yeah, I don't know. I would put Washington much higher, but
yeah,
Now I feel like we're back in the off season and during ranking season. It's like, I would have Washington higher. Turns out all the national people were right. Whoopsies. All right, when we get back, Anthony, we're going to produce on the fly here. JT3 is not going to join us now. He might join us later. We might push that to Monday.
Okay.
So do we want to play our interview with Jim Van Stone? I think we probably save that for 5 o'clock as planned. We want to go take command next?
Yeah, we can go take command.
All right, so Anthony, you get your pick. Do you want Rams preview, a Jamin Davis conversation, or Matt Miller on the NFL draft? Do you think? We'll see what Anthony selects for all of you next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up 5 o'clock, Monumental President and CEO Jim Van Stone. Talked to him earlier today about the move to Virginia, so we will discuss that with him coming up in just a little bit. Right now, though, a little take command for you on a Friday. How about some NFL draft talk? ESPN's Matt Miller has been on the show before. Stopped by the pod to talk to me and Logan. Talk about Sam Howell versus the quarterbacks in this class and much more. And here is our conversation with Matt. So you Continuing on the Take Command podcast, time to welcome in today's guest, ESPN NFL draft analyst Matt Miller. Matt, welcome to the show, man. Great to have you.
Yeah, it's good to be on with you guys. Unfortunately, it's draft season already for Commanders fans, but it's good news for people in my line of work, right? You know, that we it's early to mid-December, we're getting called up. I'll tell you, when I was at Bleacher Report for a decade, and it'd always be funny in those editorial meetings. Every week I'd pop in like to the Zoom call and I'd be like, okay, are Browns fans talking about the draft yet? You know, so it's like, it's not Browns fans anymore, but it's like, I always knew like, okay, you know, it's like week 10, Browns fans are talking about the draft. It's time to call Matt into the lineup. So it's a good time of year for me.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a good time for year for us because getting you on is, I'm sure, much easier now than it will be in like February and March. So we'll take the exclusivity as everyone else cares about, you know, the playoffs. So Logan asked me a question to start the podcast that I thought was actually very interesting, and I don't know in terms of your background and how you kind of approach what you do on the media side of this, the answer to it. But he asked, you know, hey, does Matt do more scouting or more talent evaluation? Talent evaluation being like, hey, what's on tape? Scouting being all of the other stuff that goes into a player profile. So how do you approach the job, and how does that change from now at the end of college football season until the NFL draft?
No, that's such a great question. And I almost wish there was you could have like a resume on social media that says like, hey, here's how I do things, because that really like leads to a bigger jumping off point even of like, how do you do a mock draft? Is it what you would do, or is it what you think teams will do? And so it's just this like philosophical question that we could spend hours talking about. So short answer, both. And I came up in this industry. I always wanted to be a scout. I wanted to work for a team and scout players, you know, and I think that's why journalism always appealed to me, because you're trying to find out the truth about a player. And so I still approach the job the same way of, you know, I'm going to watch every game that I possibly can, understanding that there are about 700 players that we have to be aware of, right? I'm not going to lie to you guys and pretend like I've watched 12 games on Duke's right guard. No, I haven't, you know, but, you know, quarterbacks, especially, you watch every game. And then for everyone else, you prioritize the best you can, understanding that you're a one-person scouting department. So try to watch as much as I can. But, you know, I've been in this business 13 years. And so I've seen it change. And one thing that has helped me over those 13 years is that I do now have, you know, connections with different teams, whether it be area scouts, director, player personnel, general managers, you know, college coaches, where you can say, hey, help me narrow this list down, because it's impossible to watch everyone. One of the greatest things that has happened in my career is going to ESPN, where there's a system of, if I want to watch every throw Caleb Williams has made in the red zone, I can click a couple buttons and have those ready. You know, before that, it was, God, how am I going to watch all these guys? So just having access to better technology, and you know, the NCAA is very protective about their game film. So even just having access to that is huge. So I try to do both. You talk to scouts, talk to coaches, find out what's going on behind the scenes, so that can better inform me, you know, based on what I've seen from the players.
And then, like, to Craig's question, like, how does that change over the next couple of months, really? You know what I'm saying? Because, like, I feel like there's always this, like, there's the end of season kind of mock draft formula where you kind of see the same 32 guys. Then all of a sudden, Daniel Jeremiah will put his out. You know, he's pretty dialed in, and there's 5 or 6 names on there. You're like, who the heck are these guys? Because he's been talking and he's been kind of doing that scouting process. How does that change for you over the next couple of months?
Yeah, so I actually just put my first mock draft out this week, and I like to think I had some names in there that the general draft fan maybe wasn't familiar with, like Tyrion Arnold from Alabama is my number 1 corner. I try not to absorb a lot of draft content because I love Daniel Jeremiah, I love Mel Kiper Jr., but I don't want their rankings getting in my head, so I try not to look at those things and just have, you know, hey, here's who I think of the guys. So like Tyrion Arnold, my number 1 corner, Enos Rakestraw from Missouri, my number 2 corner. So like, that's just based on what I've seen and conversations I've had with scouts. You're right. January, when we all get to the Senior Bowl, everything is going to get blown up because you start having more of those in-person conversations. I was on the phone with the general manager 2 nights ago, and he was driving to have dinner with all his scouts. You know, he's like, oh, all our scouts are in. let me run some names by you, because he's an NFL general manager and he's getting caught up because he's got his own to do during the season, right? And so it's like, it's so much easier to do a deep dive after January 13th because the deadline for underclassmen has passed. So we're not worried about Shedeur Sanders and Carson Beck anymore. They're going back to school. Let me focus on Jaden Daniels and JJ McCarthy. So you're able to cut your list. You're able to see, okay, who's going to the Shrine Bowl, who's going to the Senior Bowl, peek behind the curtain. I prioritize those guys because, if you don't get a Shrine invite or a Senior Bowl invite, the chances of you being drafted are really slim. And, that is one area my job has changed a lot. With the TV side of things, day 3 of the draft, I'm going to spend so much time studying those players. And so if you don't make the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, Combine, like if you don't get an invite to one of those 3 things, the chance that I'm going to do a deep dive on you is pretty small unless someone vouches for you. So that's another part of it, Logan. Like you start to just cut your list, and those events help. So it's not even just, it's like, oh man, like DJ put out his top 32. Let me go look at that. I mean, it's more of like scouts start talking and you're like, wait, why didn't I have Xavier Watts from Notre Dame higher?
Right.
Players like that. So it's more conversations like that happening.
Interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned you just put out your first mock. I'm guessing you did this before Monday Night Football and never expected the Giants to win because they wound up at that 4th pick in your mock. And then all of a sudden everyone wakes up the next morning and it's like, wait, they won. They should be 5th. Which I only bring up not to be like, hey, what happened there? But because I think it becomes a very interesting question if Jaden Daniels, who for you is quarterback 3, is available at 4 for Washington, which based off that Monday night result is where they would pick. So when you look at what Sam Howell has been as a pro so far, and if you're that GM making the decision, whoever that will ultimately be for Washington, assuming they have massive changes that we all expect, like how many quarterbacks would you be considering and really wanting to look at as this guy could be better than what I think Sam Howell can be better than, which is kind of asking you 2 questions in one, your top quarterbacks and also what you think of
I was
Sam.
about to say, man, that's not a fair question because, he's doing his draft stuff, and now you're like, I got to do the eval on Sam Howell too. So, mock drafts suck, by the way. So good for you. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so I love mock drafts, though. That's my favorite part of the job, honestly.
Seriously? You're a psycho.
Yeah, but I love doing those. So, Craig, I was not the biggest Sam Howell guy. I had a 3rd round grade on him. Commanders fans got pissed because someone found like my eval of like my comp for him coming out of college was Colt McCoy, which to me was a compliment. Colt was a damn good college quarterback. He just had a shoulder injury that ruined his arm, but he played in the NFL for like 14 years. So it wasn't the knock that people wanted it to be. So I was not, I had a 3rd round grade on Sam Howell. I think he's played above my expectations this year to the point that you have to do that linear evaluation. Okay, Caleb Williams, let's evaluate Sam Howell versus where we think Caleb can be. Also with the understanding Sam's 2 years into a 4-year deal. So you have to think about, we're going to have to pay this guy if he's the guy. Same with Drake May, same with Jaden Daniels, same with JJ McCarthy. My philosophy this year, whether they're in the 4th, 5th slot, somewhere right there, is if it's not Caleb Williams, you build around Sam Howell. Like Caleb's the only guy that I would say, let's see what we can get for Sam Howell. Let's call New England. Let's call Atlanta. Let's see, what kind of draft capital can we get? And, I think the other thing that you have to do, so I would start end of the year. You got a new general manager, new head coach. The first thing I'm doing is calling Ryan Poles, the general manager in Chicago, and saying, do you believe in Justin Fields? Is Justin Fields in 3 first-round picks? Do you believe in that more than you believe in Caleb Williams? Because if so, we'll give you the Bryce Young package. We'll come up to 1 and draft Caleb Williams. I think, why not call him? He traded out of it last year. Why not call and say, hey, Justin Fields looked pretty good since that thumb injury. What if we give you?
So just real quick, you like Fields more than Howell, like by that much?
No, not by that. No, what I'm saying is, if you're Chicago, can you talk Chicago into keeping Justin Fields with 3 more with you giving the draft picks? I like Justin as a runner more than Sam Howell. I think Howell has been better as a passer. And so it's just it goes to that, how do you want to build your team? And I think for Chicago and Washington, those are huge questions. So, no, I wouldn't kick Sam Howell to the curb for Drake May. I just wouldn't. Same for, I love Jaden Daniels. I'm a huge Jaden Daniels fan. That conversation might be a little more interesting because I think, Drake's 20 years old. JJ McCarthy's 21 years old. These guys, I don't know that they're ready to step in and be CJ Stroud. So there's going to be a developmental period where it does go to would we rather have Marvin Harrison Jr. with Sam Howell? Would we rather have Olu Fashanu or Joe Alt with Sam Howell? How much better can Sam look? And, that's really one of those things, like, unless you're in that building, seeing his work ethic and practice habits and film study, like, it would be disingenuous for me to sit here having watched, 12 Commanders games and say, no, like, Sam Howell's not the guy, or yeah, Sam Howell's the guy, because I think so much of it is going to be what's happening behind closed doors that can make you believe he can continue to get better.
Yeah, and so one of the things you said there that I thought was interesting, it's like, if you were to tier, let's say, your top 15 guys, like, who's tier one? Because everyone does these linear drafts, and it makes sense. Like, it's a linear big board. But, like, I don't think of the draft that way, because it's like, who are the best players? Are they in the same tier? And like, you kind of said something there about the quarterbacks, which I thought was interesting. Like, there was one guy that's kind of head and shoulders above everybody else. How do those other quarterbacks shake out in comparison to, like, a Marvin Harrison Jr. or the edge rusher from UCLA? Or, one of these top tier tackles, right? So can you kind of give us some insight on that?
Yeah, I think there's a clear top tier this year. I would say that's Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Olu Fashanu. Like, I feel comfortable saying those guys are in a group by themselves. Yeah, like, they're in most drafts, they would be the number one overall player. It's like, they're that good. Even like, if Caleb Williams had been in the draft last year, he would have gone first overall. And that's, we could say what we want about, did the Panthers make the right call with Bryce Young? He would have gone first overall. I think, the quarterbacks are always going to get inflated. Most drafts, Olu Fashanu would be a number one overall player. Marvin Harrison Jr. would be a number one overall player, even if they're not the first pick, because they understand quarterbacks go first. But they would be the top ranked player. I think after that, there's a drop off. After that, you get into Drake May, quarterback North Carolina. You get into Joe Alt, the left tackle from Notre Dame. I think that's where you see Leatu Latu, the DN from UCLA that you mentioned. Medicals are going to be huge for him, to where we could be talking about a top 10 pick, or we could be talking about a second round pick with him. Dallas Turner from Alabama, pass rusher, is right in that group as well, I would say. Brock Bowers, the tight end from Georgia. You got 3 wide receivers I would put in there: Keon Coleman, Florida State; Malik Neighbors, LSU; and Roma Dunze from Washington. And then after that, you get to another tier after that. So, like, guys that I will have a true first round grade on, it's probably like 11 or 12 this year. I think in a quote unquote normal year, you're probably going to have 15, 16. So in terms of, like, true blue chip talent, and I should have mentioned, I would put Jaden Daniels right in that group too, probably at the tail end of it. True first round grades, those are the guys I would put in there.
In that tier 2 group, you're saying, with Jaden Daniels?
Yeah.
So
I'm a Jaden Daniels fan, guys.
It's interesting.
We'll see what happens with whomever gets hired there and what the offense looks like. But no player improved more in college football this year than Jaden Daniels, and I love to see that from quarterbacks. Like, 2022, he was good, but he wasn't this. And you see the work he put in, and then you're like, damn, that dude took off. And it's not like artificial. He got better at certain skill sets that are obvious to see on film, and that's where you get pretty excited.
So let me ask you that kind of follow-up to go deeper on that, though, because I feel like sometimes that's a little scary. Is like, what actually happens is a guy figures out college football, and it's like, oh, is he ever going to be able to make the next step and figure out the NFL? So how do you try to differentiate a guy who figured out college football versus a guy that made a huge, significant leap like Jaden Daniels did that can carry that kind of improvement into the league?
What helps is when you play in the SEC West. So if you're at LSU, like, come on, you're not playing. It's not at Colorado, like, you're playing the best of the best in the SEC week in and week out. And we were talking about corners earlier, Tyrion Arnold, Enos Rakestraw, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Kamari Lassiter. There are just 4 corners right there from the SEC that are going to be first round picks. So, like, you're seeing the best talent. And so I think you always have that worry. Hey, this guy's 22. He's playing against 19-year-olds. Did it just click for him because he's physically at his peak, or is it because he's been in college for 4 years and it clicked? Those are all questions that you have to answer. And I think what helps me with Jaden Daniels specifically is I've talked to coaches at LSU that say, no, what clicked was the work ethic. He started to understand what he had to do to be great. And he was in here every day working his ass off. He gained like 15 pounds of muscle because he knew he needed to get better there. I can watch his 2022 tape and see him dropping his eyes and running around like crazy when he gets pressured. I watch him in 2023. Eyes are downfield. He gets pressured. He understands he has numbers, and he's layering it over the top to two really good receivers and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr.
I was about to say, man, he's got some good receivers
he's got
too.
Some dudes. Yeah. I always say, like, so did Joe Burrow. So did CJ Stroud. It's like, and I think last year someone asked Hendon Hooker about that, and he said, "It's not my fault my receivers get open." And he's right. It's not. It's like you would be dumb not to throw to them because they're open.
Yeah.
So
do you hit them in timing and do you hit them accurately? Yeah.
And I think that's where, like, I love the analytics side of things. It helps me do my job, but there's no substitute to turning on the tape and seeing, man, I'm watching this guy make plays with his eyes and arm in the pocket that he never made before. And that's where, like, I get excited about his development.
Yeah, so you said something interesting earlier when you were talking about Caleb Williams and how you would potentially trade up for him. If one of those three guys that you mentioned aren't there when Washington, I guess, is picking at 4, is that right, Craig? 4?
Yeah, with where we are right now, they're picking 4th. Obviously, 4 games to go.
And obviously, how quarterbacks tend to go, and you seem very high on Sam Howell. Like, would you trade back out of that 4th pick if you make the decision to stay with Sam? And it does seem like that second tier is pretty meaty with some good football players in it, and you can get back out of there and still get a good football player.
I think trading back is certainly on the table, and I'm not trying to like hedge here at all. It really depends on what happens at 2-3. So let's say, just for fun, Chicago takes Caleb Williams, New England takes Drake May, the Arizona Cardinals take Marvin Harrison Jr. You're sitting at 4 with Olu Fashanu on the board. Just take him.
He's the first tier, right? Man. You got to take him.
Exactly. Yeah. Top tier. And I like Joe Alt as well, but the difference between those guys is significant enough for me that you don't risk it. You don't risk, hey, what if we move back? Especially where you have a division rival, the New York Giants, sitting at 5. Don't help them. Like, don't give them potentially a good player. So in that scenario, you take Fashanu and you feel great about it. And then round 2, you're like, hey, let's get some receivers in round 2. And this is a fun study. And you guys, if you get some downtime, do this. Look at the best left tackles in the NFL. Most of them were first-round picks.
Right.
Now, you want to look at the best wide receivers in the NFL? You got a laundry list of guys round 2, round 3. So, could you find, an A.J. Brown type talent, the top round 2, or Deebo Samuel? Hell yeah, it happens every year. So,
especially this year too, right?
Fashanu, right. I had 8 wide receivers going to my round 1 mock draft. That would be a record. And there were like 2 or 3 more guys I probably could have fit in there. So the wide receiver class is so deep. And I know fans, but Washington fans, you guys have a lot of needs. That's just where you're at. You're drafting 4. You obviously have some needs, but you can stack the board pretty well this year, I think. If you go tackle round 1, whether it's edge rusher or wide receiver in round 2, like there's good depth there.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to ask next is you actually have what I would consider potentially a small number of quarterbacks, only 4, I think, going, or 3, 4, 4 going in your first round, all of whom are going in the top 10, is you've got J.J. McCarthy from Michigan going very high. But Bo Nix is going to be in the mix. Michael Penix from Washington is going to be in the mix. There might be a couple of others by the time the process is over. And then you have Washington sitting at the top of the second round with their pick and the Bears pick. Who are some of the guys that like, how would you grade like the position Washington is in with those 2 picks at the top of the second round? Because you said there's maybe not as many guys with the first round grade this year, but is that next second tier deep enough at the right positions that it could be extremely beneficial to Washington?
Yeah, definitely. And, I'll go back to, this is a great class for wide receivers. It's a great class for offensive tackles. So, and especially, the right tackle position, I know Andrew Wiley's there. The jury, I think, is out on the job that he's done this year, but the draft is deep enough at those positions that you could be pretty excited. Corner is going to be deep in round 2. I know, last year getting Forbes in the first round, we're definitely going to see a new defensive system in there. So that will be interesting to see, how well Forbes fits with whatever comes in. But I think at those, what you would consider premium positions, there is that good depth. So top of round 2, probably not at quarterback is the one thing I'm going to say, because I do think those 4 guys are going to go fairly early. Bo Nix might even go late first round. I think we could see a team try to jump back up if you like Bo Nix. The guy started 60 games in college. So anything you want to see, you can see it on tape. SEC, Pac-12, he played at both. Really good at attacking outside the hashes, really good intermediate timing. He's athletic. I could see him having a strong enough pre-draft process that someone late first round tries to get back in, and to make him the guy. Especially because I think last time I counted, there were like 12 teams that could make a change at quarterback, and we're talking about 4 going in the first round. So Bo Nix and Michael Penix become pretty valuable in that scenario, especially where the free agent quarterbacks this year, Kirk Cousins and Ryan Tannehill. Like I don't know that anybody's beating down any doors to sign those guys, especially with Kirk coming off an injury. So it does get pretty interesting on how are you going to fill those quarterback needs with, again, another long conversation. NIL has changed quarterback in the draft. The days of guys, okay, hey, it's been 4 years, I'll enter the draft. That's gone. We got Tyler Show going 7 years in college at this point. And so that middle market of quarterbacks is Cam Ward, Washington State is transferring. He would be a guy that would normally be in the draft, and you would say, hey, that's a good mid-round quarterback. Now those guys aren't jumping in. And so it feels like we're going to get to this point where there's going to be round 1 quarterbacks, and then there's going to be late day 3 quarterbacks, and there might not be a whole lot in the middle.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about the offensive side of the ball here. In terms of defensive, like blue chippers, are there any? And do you think that, like, kind of, one of the positions that was really kind of rich last year was that edge rusher in that early second round? Are there going to be guys there that can play some football?
Yeah, so it's a light class defensively, especially in terms of blue chippers. I would say Turner at Alabama and Latu at UCLA have the potential to be there. Again, with Latu, medicals are going to be a huge part of that evaluation. I think particularly the edge rusher spot is interesting this year because you're going to have guys who are there early round 2. They're going to be values. It's just a matter of whether they're going to be a scheme fit. Like Chop Robinson at Penn State is fascinating to me because his production was through the roof. I think his pass rush win rate was like 20%. But he's listed at 255 pounds, and I don't believe that for a second. I think he's 240, 245 is what he looks like on the field. So that's just going to be a question of, hey, he's undersized, however you want to slice it, even if he puts on some weight throughout the process. So you're going to have guys like that, who are available potentially top of round 2. It's just, do you like the scheme fit? On the opposite end, Chris Braswell from Alabama, he's been overshadowed by Will Anderson Jr., overshadowed by Dallas Turner. He's just a really good player, plays with power, sets the edge well, has, that first step burst. He's probably going to be available early round 2, especially if you're running a defense where a guy has, really almost exclusively stood up in college. That could be something that's a really good fit depending on what kind of scheme you're running. So I do think there will be a conversation, maybe 3 to 4 guys at the edge position that are available. It's a very weak defensive tackle class, which I know you guys are, you've got 2 very, very good defensive tackles in there. But it's weak at safety and off-ball linebacker. It doesn't look like it's going to be super loaded this year either.
Last thing for you, Matt, and I can't believe I'm the one asking about this position, but when you talk about building around Howell, a tight end would be quite nice. So how's the tight end class look?
Brock Bowers is a stud. That's easy. That's the easiest evaluation maybe in this
Wow,
year's
that's
draft.
Great insight.
He's kind of an interesting one though, because he's a little undersized, right? Like he's not your 6'7" body type.
Stop.
We're just trying to paint a picture. I'm trying to paint a picture for the audience that when you think about stud tight end, you think about like the 6'7", kind of Rob Gronkowski body type. Yeah, Travis Kelce. Yeah, he's different, even if he's still awesome.
Bowers is different. 6'4", 245. I think he's very similar to George Kittle.
I was going to say Kittle. Okay. Look at you, Matt. I knew we'd get along so well.
Right. And honestly, it's a similar play style of that, like, rough tumble, I'm going to run over you. It's not the, like, pretty boy Kyle Pitts, like, split me out, I'll run vertical. It's like, no, I'm going to run through you if you get in front of me. He's, great effort as a blocker, very, very strong. So he's going to go early. I'm obsessed with Jatavian Sanders at Texas. I don't know if he's going to declare for the draft yet, but I think he's a top 40 player if he comes out. He's more of your, motion guy, flex tight end, really, really good up the seam. He is a good downfield blocker. He's not an inline guy. That's just not his game. But it's a weak tight end class, which is understandable because last year was maybe the greatest tight end class of all time. And we're seeing those early benefit, Sam Laporta, Trey McBride, like so many of those dudes are just blowing up already. Kate Otten is having a quietly really good year in Tampa. So as much as there are teams, I live south of Kansas City and I'm like banging the table, like, guys, should have drafted a tight end last year and they didn't. And now it's like, Kelsey's getting triple teamed, and because you don't have any wide receivers, it'd be great to have a tight end in the wings for your 35-year-old, who's now dating the most famous person on the planet. This is not the year to try to find that starter level tight end if you're not drafting in the top 35.
We'll see how many times the Commanders are drafting in the top 35. That's still in play, so we'll see.
You might be
Matt
okay.
Miller, Matt Miller, you can read his work, ESPN.com, the mock draft out and now, the first one, many more to come. And Matt, hopefully this is the first of at least a couple conversations that we'll have between now and April.
Yeah, let's do it. Senior Bowl is a month and some change away. So a lot to talk about, guys. Always a lot to talk about.
No doubt about
Absolutely.
it. All right, thanks, Matt, and thanks everybody for listening to Take Command. Thanks for watching this clip of Take Command. First, why don't you like it? It lets other people know that it was good, and then they should watch it too. And Logan, we have a new exclusive home for full episodes.
We do. 1067 The Fans YouTube page. Go check it out and please subscribe.
Yeah, do what Logan said.
Do it.
Very, very smart. It's the Hoffman Show. We are live at District D. Block party getting set up here at District D at Capital One Arena Gallery Place. We're on the Team 980, always live on the free Odyssey app. And yes, we bring the camera with us. We're streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. It is a Wizards game day. Dave Johnson back with us a little over an hour from right now. Of course, the story of the week, though, is Monumental Sports taking their teams out to Potomac Yards. At least that is the plan. It's not done yet, but that is the plan to go out to Virginia in 2028. And one of the key guys that's going to have to make that happen is Jim Van Stone, the COO of Monumental Sports Entertainment. And we were able to talk to him a little bit earlier today. And, well, it's not his beat. It is his job. So we're going to go ahead and hit the fancy Not My Beat imager.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in, Not My Beat.
And again, there's no one more there than Jim Van Stone. And when I talked to Jim earlier this morning, the first thing I asked him before we got into a lot of the stuff that we've talked about on the show here the last couple of days is why? Why did Monumental make this decision to move the teams, the Caps and the Wizards, out to Virginia?
I think for us is really about expanding our overall portfolio. We have an opportunity to move 4.5 miles away from Capital One Arena, at Potomac Yard, and it really affords us an opportunity to have a full campus, an immersive sports entertainment campus. And what's part of it is a 19,000 seat arena, probably 6,000 to 7,000 seat music venue, a new Wizards training facility, corporate headquarters, esports facilities, a new studio for our Monumental Sports Network. So, for us, it really is an opportunity to bring all of our organization together in one platform, but also really think forward in the future about having the most incredible fan engagement complex that any sports arena has seen. So I think those are some of the things that we're working on. That was really the impetus for us, was something that we could do that would be transformational. And, I feel like we're very lucky and fortunate in this marketplace. DC is our home, but our drawing really is north of Baltimore, south of Richmond. And that's almost 8 million people that are fans of, both our Wizards and our Capital. So for us, it was really a unique experience, and it was so close to home that it seemed to work out really, really well.
So I think when I heard you on Grant and Danny the other day, you basically said that the campus element that you just described is the pull, that there is just nothing that DC could have done because the space that you guys are looking for is not available within the district. It is only available in a place like Virginia, or perhaps it could have been available somewhere in Maryland, but somewhere where there's suburban levels of space. So just to be clear, if DC had given that $600 million that Ted Leonsis is looking for 3 months ago, and there's a million reasons that have been well reported as to why that couldn't happen, refinancing, et cetera. If that money had come, there's still no way that you guys would be keeping both teams in the district?
We don't think the infrastructure of where we're located really supported that. We think there's big visions for Capital One Arena. We want to continue to operate it. We think there's the ability to do 100 plus events a year. We talk about, internally the growth of women's sports, and we think there's an opportunity for our Mystics to come over and play in a 10 to 20,000 seat arena over the next couple of years. We think there's a huge concert opportunity. We think there's family show events that, because our building right now is one of the busiest buildings in the country and even globally, we miss on shows that we think we can now bring to this community. But I also think we have a responsibility to look at more diverse offerings. Like, for example, this year in the music side of our business, I mean, we'll do about 60 concerts. We're doing about a dozen of them in the Latin and Hispanic market, and that is a booming opportunity. So just the diversity of events, Craig, we think is really unique. And then the other piece that I think we have arguably one of the best convention centers in the world, basically blocks away from us. They book conventions multiple years out. Our schedule doesn't provide us the opportunity to do joint partnerships on that end. So if they have a major convention coming in to the convention center that's 10 to 20,000 people, we think that we're a great opportunity for them to host some single events as part of a major convention. So we think the opportunities are really good for us. And, we think the proximity of being 4 miles away in terms of arena to campus, or a mile from the border of the district, we think is really staying in this community.
Jim Van Stone, Monumental Sports, is with us. And Jim, undoubtedly you've heard the criticism from Clinton Yates, Michael Wilbon, Barry Svrluga, David Aldridge, myself, about
the cultural element of this. It's something you can't put a number on. You are taking a city game out of the city. What kind of responsibility do you guys feel about that? And, you know, I guess almost a fair question is like, how did you weigh that responsibility amongst all of the other factors that you considered and ultimately wound up weighing you to leave, especially with the Wizards?
So we pride ourselves in being a customer first organization. I mean, we've always been that way from that standpoint. So we weight everything. I mean, you know, we believe that we connect with our fans as well as any organization out there. We do a lot of research. We do a lot of engagement from that standpoint. I mean, we appreciate everyone's, you know, opinions, value everyone's opinions from that standpoint. You know, I think we have a runway of the next 5 years or so to really start to build that, you know, information model, that education model, to make sure that that transition is as seamless as it can be, Craig. So, you know, we take great pride in that. We take a lot of responsibility in that end. So, you know, we definitely have some work to do. I mean, you know what, we're not shy about saying that. I mean, you know, and by no means do we think that we're taking the game out of the city. I think, you know what, we think we are really expanding the opportunities, and the future vision for this is to really elevate that engagement opportunity at a much broader and higher level. So, you know, and I think what's great about us is that, you know, we represent this region of 8 million people from Baltimore to you know, Richmond, and basketball in the DMV is the best marketplace in the country. So we would never want to lose that connection. I mean, it's part of who we are as an organization. And, you know, even on the other side of our business, the hockey market, I mean, we have been one of the fastest growing youth hockey markets in the country. So, you know, we think there is an opportunity where maybe some of the other sports, you know, the market's split in half. I mean, we feel like we own the entire region, but we are committed to DC, and we're committed to keeping those levels of engagement.
So I don't disagree with you that you guys have been incredibly involved with DC. I mean, the Twitter bio is for the district. The Boundary Stone thing is something that we're all learning about. It is incredibly DC. So DC that most people in DC had not heard of it. But along those lines, like, it makes it hurt all that much more, I think, for a lot of folks to say, you know, you say like, hey, we don't feel like we're pulling the team from the city, but like, you fundamentally are. It's going outside of the border. And I hear you when you say like there's a runway here, there's education potential. So can you give me and the audience an idea of what that actually looks like to bridge that gap, potentially literally bridge that gap of the fundamental fact that you are taking the team out of DC, but you want to leave some of the soul and connect to the soul of the city?
You know, I think it's definitely doing a lot more community programs, and we'll be committed to that. I think it's really working collectively with, you know, people that are really close to our organization, people that are close to the marketplace. I mean, I don't have all the answers today, you know, but I do know that we have a commitment to focusing on that as we kind of move forward, and, you know, hopefully making that transition as seamless as we can. And, you know, I like I said, I respect everyone's, you know, feedback. I mean, you know, some of the folks that you mentioned, I really value their opinions. I mean, you know, so that makes it even more for us about what we're going to do to make that transition, you know, smooth as we kind of move forward and stuff like that. But I do think long term, the opportunity over there is a real game changer. It is going to be the best, you know, sports and entertainment campus in the entire country, you know, and that's what we're going to have the ability to build out. It's going to be based on the principles of basketball, the principles of hockey, the fan experience, the fan engagement side of it. So, you know, we definitely have some work ahead of us, and we haven't been shy to say that from that end, but we are committed to this region and the district. And that's why we want to continue to operate, you know, even in Capital One Arena with the diversity of events from that standpoint. So there's work ahead of us. I mean, you know what, I haven't been shy in saying that.
Jim Van Stone, Monumental Sports president and CEO, so the president of business and CEO, is with us. So along those lines, you mentioned Capital One Arena is still going to be something that you operate. The Mystics certainly, I think, would be great there if they can continue to grow at the rate that they and the WNBA have. I was very pleased to hear you include the NWSL as someone who used to work for the Spirit in your answer to G&D about this yesterday or Wednesday. But I'm curious, with some of the consternation that we've been talking about, and with the idea you're trying to accomplish to have more flexibility on this campus, was there ever a consideration of splitting the teams, having the Wizards practice facility be new, and everything that you've talked about that does sound amazing? I want to dive into more of that in a second, but keeping the Wizards games at Capital One Arena, allowing the Capitals to play in this new arena and still accomplishing some of the flexibility in terms of dates, whatever. Was that ever a consideration? Why or why not?
I don't think so. I mean, I think, you then get in a situation where you're picking, for example, your son or your daughter. I mean, you know what, we want one family and we want to be cohesive together from that standpoint. And you know what, we want to afford an opportunity for all the fans coming into our live events and our arenas to have the very best experience. And you know what, there was never a consideration from that standpoint. I think, for us, it was more about the opportunity to diversify the overall portfolio of what we offer. And, we manage multiple venues in the greater Washington region. I think collectively, we probably do over 400 events a year, about 5 million people through all the turnstiles that we operate, because we manage Eagle Bank Arena, at George Mason University from an operation and a booking standpoint. So, but we never had any thoughts of keeping one team here and then, moving one team to the new campus. I mean, it just, we want to make sure that when we go into something that is state of the art and brand new, that everyone has the same type of opportunity to experience that. And there's a couple simple things. I mean, one of the things that's great about our market and the fans is, for the example, the retail experience. I mean, unfortunately, we have the smallest retail store, of NBA, any NBA or NHL team. So having, a store that could be 2 or 3 times the size of what we have, hopefully it offers even more opportunities for our fans to get engaged with the products, if they're interested in retail merchandise. So I just think the overall platform, for us, with it being a full campus, was a really, big driver for us overall.
One of the examples you've mentioned in terms of hey, it's worked here is Philadelphia. You're a Philly guy originally. My wife is from Philadelphia, so I've spent quite a bit of time there. And also, as someone who used to be on the Commanders beat, I've covered a game in Philly every single year. I've been to that complex many times. I see that campus as very different in part in terms of how accessible it is. The highways in and out are very easy. There is public transportation that was designed to get people there. You have sounded very confident that you can overcome some of the logistical hurdles that are in place to get folks to Alexandria, whether that's from Maryland, from DC, from other parts of Northern Virginia, or South, frankly. As you mentioned, your area is kind of down to Richmond. Why are you so confident that you can overcome some of those hurdles and have the success that a Philadelphia-style campus has had?
Because we have a commitment from the Commonwealth, we have a commitment from the city, we have a personal commitment into it to really take a look at the transportation, the ingress, egress in a really broad landscape. There is a brand new metro stop at Potomac Yard, so we think there is opportunities. There's a commitment and a financial commitment to really, augment the infrastructure from that standpoint. So we think there is a huge opportunity on that end. If this was happening next season, I certainly would be, nervous, but we're talking 5 years out. So, that definitely gives a lot of time for planning and really revitalizing the transportation methodology to get in there. So we're bullish on it. And, I think that was a big, discussion point as we went through all the conversations, was really that ingress egress for our fans. And I think we'll be in a great platform as we get there.
The president of Metro did come out the other day, though, and say, hey, no one talked to me about this. Do you have any comment on that? Because it seems like that's an important person that should be in the loop.
Yeah, I haven't personally, but I mean, certainly the state and the city, I mean, that's definitely a focus of theirs. And, I think for us, really it is critical for our fans. And, that's the thing, is we want people to have a smooth experience driving to that campus. We want them to be there early. We want them to be on time for the games, and then we want them to stay late. So, making sure that transportation opportunity is, really well done is critical in the overall landscape.
Back to the DC sides of this, I think this is an opportunity, obviously, for Gallery Place to be rethought, revitalized, reimagined, and it's going to have to be, because the economy has changed post-pandemic in a way that, we're in a completely new world now, and it's something that you have thought a lot about as a president of business operations of a company that size. So as you've talked to the city and had your discussions, whether they were anticipating the Caps and Wizards staying or not, what does that area look like by 2030? Is it still a business district? Does it become more residential? What is the future of that neighborhood, the way you see it, and how does your business and what Capital One Arena will become play a role in that?
I would hope that it still is a great entertainment district, because honestly, the diversity of events that I think that we can bring into the facility, are going to be really unique and different from that standpoint. I mean, we are still blocks from, the mall, the greatest park in the world. And, we've got all these great monuments around us. So I think it's going to be a vibrant community. I feel like it's going to be strong. And I think we can be, a fantastic anchor in the overall, stability of the Penn Quarter District. So I think there's a bright future ahead. And, I think we're going to have to think differently organizationally and in partnership, with the district and really the whole neighborhood from that standpoint. But I think we can really make it, very, very vibrant and continue that process. I mean, the one great thing about the venues that we manage and operate is they are memory platforms for families and fans and everyone. So I think, it's going to be a commitment for us to do that. And, hopefully we can really help support the local neighborhood in, keeping it as vibrant as it is.
I'd almost like to ask you the same question, but this time more generally as a subject matter expert than as the president of Monumental Sports. But since 1992, there has been the Camden Yards model of let's build an arena, a stadium, or whatever in a business district. People will go after work. Obviously, that model is now destroyed because of telework and remote work. So, as one of the first teams doing this in this post-pandemic era, what is the future of stadiums for sports teams and how they are tied to where they've been for the last 25 years?
Well, you know what? Our businesses are interesting. We had these great buildings that, probably had the most immersive experiences that you can imagine. I mean, look at all the LEDs and the signage and the scoreboards and everything. We literally open them up an hour before an event and close them right after. So I think we have to think differently as an organization and industry of how we can make these things really unique and different. One of the things that we opened up about 2 years ago inside Capital One Arena was a KPMG Innovation Lab. And basically, it is a full day-long program that KPMG brings in clients to go through an immersive experience about how they're approaching their businesses and what future opportunities are. We have to think differently about how we operate these to drive more, traffic down. And I think that model could be unique and different. I mean, having these be, the modern WeWorks, during the day and then filter into, a building event in the evening or a great entertainment event, I think is unique and different. That could be something that we think about, as we reimagine, beyond the 120 or 130 events that we want to do a year here at the arena at Capital One, how we utilize it during the business day.
Jim Van Stone, wrapping up with him. He is the president, business operations and COO of Monumental Sports. The Congress Heights location, ESA, what happens with that now? Because it's one thing, sure, to have the Go-Go play there, but the G League is for development. It's not while you hope to put on a great fan experience, certainly that's not its primary function. And that agreement is not very old. The city just gave some money to Monumental for that. So what happens at that location and the commitment you guys have made to Congress Heights?
Well, I think the training facility we think is a unique opportunity for the Mystics. We think that could be a full-time Mystics WNBA training facility. We do think the Go-Go is going to continue to grow. We think the G League is going to continue to grow. There is a lot of passion about basketball, as a whole. And we want to work in partnership with Events DC to help, even book more events there together, from that standpoint. It's a dynamic and great building. I think the growth of women's sports, though, there is going to come a plateau where we need more seats in a building than what it currently provides. But, I think we're going to hopefully work together in figuring out strategies and seeing how we can support. But we'd love the Go-Go to continue for a long, long time to play there. We think it's the perfect size and the perfect opportunity for a G League team.
And then last but not least, the other president in the corporation is Michael Winger, the president of basketball operations, or one of the other presidents, I should say. And he was a huge player in the Clippers practice facility coming together that they have, I think, now opened or about to open. I know they're about to open the stadium, the arena next year. What has it been like working with him on this, and how helpful has he been for the practice facility side of it and kind of some of the bigger picture stuff, having just gone through it in LA?
You know what? I feel very fortunate. Michael's a brilliant partner. And, I will say organizationally, we are very collaborative. We've been that way between the team side and the business side for a long time. So, he's got a lot of great ideas. He's got recommendations. And, we've all been working really seamlessly from that standpoint. So, hey, we are going through a transition process, and we've told people that. I mean, we want to get more young talent, and that's kind of our focus and goal as we move forward. And we've got a great group of players that are also equally committed to the community and stuff. So it's been great. And Michael's done a great job, him and Will coming in, and we're excited about the future. I think the future is bright for us. And you know what, having them a part of it and doing some really great things is going to make us even better.
Jim, this was really insightful. I appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll get a chance to catch up as things progress over the next couple of years.
I appreciate it, Craig. I love everything that you're doing, and keep up the great work. Love the show.
Thank you, sir.
All right, that was Jim Van Stone, President of Business Operations and COO of Monumental Sports and Entertainment. If you tuned in the middle of that, missed any portion, of course, you can rewind in the free Odyssey app, or that interview will be up on YouTube shortly, in the podcast feed shortly as well. When we get back here on a Football Friday presented by your local Honda dealer, we will go around the NFL. Our Pick 6 at 6 coming as well. Dave Johnson at 6:15. Lots to come as we broadcast live from District E at Gallery Place on the Team 980. Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I am live at District E today, where the block party is getting set up right now. Doors are open here if you want to go and get some food over in the District E restaurant side of things. And there's all kinds of fancy camera equipment and stuff set up over here. There's going to be a live performance at 6 o'clock. So, Anthony, for our Pick 6, we're going to have different background music today. We're going to have whatever is live here at District E.
Okay. I'm with that.
Okay.
Are you?
Sure.
All right.
I'm good with it. I don't really have much of a choice at this point. I just wish – I'm like, well, damn. Well, you guys are setting up all this fancy camera equipment. Why couldn't we have we could have borrowed and done some test shots, you know? I brought my good fancy camera from home because I thought we were going to need some Zoom capabilities today, Anthony, to zoom in and zoom out because I thought we were going to have a guest on set. Instead, that guest is going to join us next week. But I'm like, why couldn't we have gotten a fancy camera shot radio show today? That could have been cool.
That would have been sick.
There's a lot of here, actually. At the risk of screwing up my entire setup here, I'm gonna show you and the folks who are watching on YouTube behind the scenes here. First of all, there's Harvey Grant and Michael Adams, Wizards legends. There's speaking of legends, Dave Satchel, WUSA cameraman who was there for 40 years. So those guys are here. Come on, camera. Apparently, I need to swivel the other way. So we're gonna come back around past me. There's Chris, the engineer. And I can't apparently go all the way around because this camera has 180 degrees, and I'm in the exact wrong 180 degrees. So I was going to show everybody everything, but I don't have a 360-degree panorama. Dang. You know who does have a 360-degree panorama?
Me?
All these cameras that – no, your camera doesn't move at all unless you pick it up and wander it around.
Yeah.
There's all these. We got cameras on tracks. We got cameras like steady cam situations. Got a lot going on. Anyway, Anthony, it's apropos of none of that. The point is, there's a bunch of cool stuff happening down here at Gallery Place, which feels very weird in this week. I'm just going to admit that with the irony of what it is, and that they're unveiling a court with the district on it tonight. But alas, it is time to go around the NFL. So, Anthony, did you get the email or the clip that I sent you earlier?
Yeah,
a previous edition of Around the NFL?
I got it, but I never – let me download it right now.
Okay, so I'll set it up while you get it ready. Thursday night game last night. So as we're walking out of the building last night, Anthony and I after the show, Anthony was a little bit behind me, and he runs to catch up to shout down the block down there off of Half Street, "Hey, Craig, I got the Raiders tonight." And I was like, I do too. So there's 1-0, good picks by us. And a couple of weeks ago when we were in Around the NFL, actually it was the week, Anthony, that you were out, Vic Ferreira picked games in your stead. And Vic actually made a prediction about the Chargers that turned out to be pretty prescient.
No, like eventually players have to do it. But I do think there is something to the atmosphere and the comfortability that a team plays with that the Chargers just don't seem to have that confidence to make those plays. And by the way, I would say the exact same thing about the Commanders. And that's the difference in good and bad teams.
Like, who is on the more of a hot seat, Brandon Staley or Ron Rivera?
I think Rivera, but I think they're both gone. You know, like Staley, like Rivera's got excuses.
But the Chargers were supposed to be real good, I feel like.
Yeah, and like they made the playoffs last year, but they had an epic meltdown against the Jags. And it just feels like his teams always melt down. And I think if you're the owner out in LA, we have our quarterback. I would probably just elevate Kellen Moore if I like him, who's the OC, and continue that relationship. But it's not good, man.
I mean, trying to shake off that loss last year to Jacksonville in the playoffs. I mean, that one's a tough one to swallow.
Yeah, it is.
And it makes me feel like I don't know if he's going to last to the end of the year too.
They've been historically a cheap franchise, so I think he's probably good to the end of the year.
Whoops.
And
Vic Ferreira with the prediction. Nailed it. Bye-bye, Brandon Staley. Good night. Good luck. You are 24-24 as a head coach, and that is apparently going to be your record until you get your next head coaching job. So we both got the game right last night, Anthony. Vic Ferreira got the coach firing right.
Yeah, that was insane. I don't think if they get embarrassed like they did yesterday that he's fired.
No.
Maybe if it's a close game, but after going out there and getting destroyed by the Raiders, who hadn't scored an offensive touchdown in 20 possessions.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Like, the Raiders got shut out the week before.
Yep.
And they dropped 42 in the first half and 63 overall on Brandon Staley, the defensive coach. Whoopsie daisies. And if, they just hadn't scored, fine. But you can't be the defensive guru and give up 63 to Aiden O'Connell, all due respect, and the Raiders. Okay, to the games still yet to come as we go around the NFL on a Football Friday, presented by your local Honda dealer. Vikings and Bengals. Bengals are actually 3-point favorites at home here. More battles of the backup QB. Certainly when NFL Network put this as a Saturday game, they did not expect it to be Jake Browning versus Nick Mullins.
Yep.
Ugh. Josh Dobbs relegated all the way to the third string. I guess I'll take Cincinnati at home here. I don't feel great about either of these teams because it just feels like they're both playing with house money, and it's a house of cards. But the Bengals have looked really good the last couple of weeks. Vikings have been all over the place. They of course, they won last week, but they were on the other side of the 3-0 score. They had the 3. I will take Cincinnati at home.
I think I'm going to take Cincinnati as well. Jake Browning, he's done a great job just getting the ball out of his hand. I wouldn't say the Vikings pass rush poses all that big of a threat. They play a lot of zone defense, and I think Jake Browning, he's going to be in a position to just take what the defense is giving him and just follow through with the Bengals game plan. Nick Mullins, not too high on. I think the Bengals get after him. I'm going
Mullins
Bengals
is a
here.
Big boomer bust guy. He's really talented. He's just not consistent remotely. So, he can perform very well, but, we'll see. Steelers and your boys. Indianapolis favored by 1.5 at home. I can't believe Pittsburgh is now in a position where they are 7-6 and not favored against Gardner Minshew and the Colts, but that is where we are now at this point in the season. Colts not exactly crushing it since Jonathan Taylor re-exited the lineup. So I'll let you go first on this one as the in-house Colts expert. Who we got?
Well, you already know who I'm rocking with. I'm rocking with them Colts, baby. Saturday, primetime game. The defense sort of kind of got beat up last week. I
Not
think
great.
The weeks before that, leading up to it, the defense playing exceptionally well, special teams playing exceptionally well, in spite of what the offense was doing. But I think if the Colts are going to be successful and ultimately try to make a playoff run, they're going to have to be led by the defense. I already talked to Zaire. He's ready.
Inside sauces.
I'm going with the Colts. I think they bounce back this week.
I'm going to go with them as well, in part because I just refuse to pick the Steelers anymore because they're playing with the backup quarterback. Their offense is terrible, and I don't like them. Broncos, nothing personal. Like I don't dislike the Steelers personally. Just I don't like their football team. They're hideous to watch, and then they win. It makes me angry. Broncos and Lions, a team that was the hottest team in the league to start the year versus the team that is the hottest team in the league. Broncos have lost just once since their horrid start. They are 3-3 away from home. They're indoors against Detroit. Detroit, 4.5-point favorites. Is this the week the Lions get back on track? I don't know what to pick here.
Is 4.5 a stinky fish, Craig?
It does kind of feel like they're begging you to pick the Broncos. Because
why?
I feel like most people would pick Denver straight up in this game, the way the two teams have played as of late.
Yeah.
So if they're giving you 4.5, that feels a little fishy to me.
Well, give me them Broncos, Craig.
You're such a sucker.
Give me them Broncos, baby. To be honest, Craig, they should have beaten the Texans. That was a bad loss. 3 second-half interceptions by Russ. I don't expect Russ to be that bad. I don't expect it. And yeah, I'm not. I used to be high on the Lions, but they're hit or miss for me now. Like
they're hit or miss.
Super inconsistent. Like one game they're putting up Madden numbers, another game
they're still 9-4.
They are.
The problem is 2 of those 4 have come in the last 2 weeks, and they've happened going 1 of 5 on 4th down, back-to-back weeks.
Yeah.
That's nuts. It's not happening again, and so they've got to clean up the turnovers. They've got to be better on 4th down or be okay punting the football or taking field goals, whichever the situation calls for. They've just got to be smarter managing the game from head coach to quarterback. And I think they can be. And so that plus the fact that this is a smelly, stinky fish because they're begging you to take the Broncos. I refuse to be a sucker, and I'm going to take the Lions.
Well, I'm a sucker because I'm going with the Broncos, baby. Let's go, Russ. Let's cook something.
Bears and Browns. Browns 8-5 on the year, and now Joe Flacco's got a shiny new contract. He wins out. He could win as much, or not win as much. I guess literally he could win as much, earn as much as $4.05 million after he has been great for them. Defense is still a little shaky, but they've been able to figure it out. Bears, speaking of teams that are wildly up and down, when they look good, man, like what they did obviously to Washington on that Thursday night, what they did last week to Detroit, like, damn, when they look good, they look good. But when they're bad, they are unplayable. Cleveland, 3-point favorites at home. Who you got?
This one's tough. I'm going to go Cleveland. I want to go Justin Fields, though. I think he's turned the corner a little bit. He got healthy. The Bears are clicking. The Bears defense is playing top 5 defensive football. But I don't know. I like.
They have been top 5 since Montez got there, which is crazy.
But I like Flacco.
You want to know what I call that? Unsustainable. Yeah, and you know what the Bears are? If I was sitting opposite of you right now in my studio back at Half Street instead of broadcasting live here from District D, I'd click the little Charlie Brown button that says, I'm going to kick that football clear to the moon. And then what happens? Lucy pulls the football, and he falls on his bum every single time. That's who the Bears are. Every time I'm going to pick Chicago, I am Charlie Brown trying to kick that dumb football. And so I'm not going to do it. I'm going to pick the Browns, even though I don't like the Browns and feel like they're just Charlie Brown. Now I'm mixing metaphors, but they're Charlie Brown / the Spider-Man meme. Every time I go to pick them, they let me down too. But I got to pick someone. I'll go with Cleveland. Cleveland, this is for you. Buccaneers and Packers, Green Bay, 3.5-point favorites. Again, a team that I don't know what to make of them. Every time we think that they figured it out, they fall back down. They're 6-7. Buccaneers are 6-7. I'm actually going to go with Tampa for the road upset here. Tampa's got a lot to play for. They control their destiny, as all the teams do in the NFC South that are not Carolina. I'm going Tampa.
Oh, I think I'm going to go with Tampa as well.
Man, remember when you never picked anybody to win at Lambeau?
Yeah.
Although Green Bay is 4-2. Now I'm doubting myself.
What are they?
Green Bay's 4-2 at home. Tampa's 3-4 on the road. I hate this time of year in the NFL.
Me too. Everybody's just,
especially because this year, and no one's good.
No.
Except for the San Francisco 49ers.
Everybody's here.
Everybody's painfully mediocre.
It is literally any given Sunday in the NFL for most of these teams.
I mean, the Packers have alternated wins and losses for 4 straight weeks. You mean to tell me I'm supposed to predict what they're going to do?
Oh, so they lost last week to the Giants, right?
They had won 3 straight, and then I was looking at the wrong end of their schedule. They had won 3 straight and then lost to the Giants.
So are they going to lose 3 straight?
Why do you think I know, Anthony? Just because I pick more games right than you doesn't mean I actually know anything. That was cruel.
Yeah, see, look, I was going to agree with you, Craig. I'm going with the Packers. Go, Pack, go.
What if I change my mind and I also want to go with the Packers?
Well, I'm going with the Bucs.
Okay, I got the Packers.
Oh my God, are you serious?
No,
okay.
I think at Lambeau the cold scares me with Tampa. No, know what? Screw it. I'll commit to it. I said the Bucks. I'll stay the Bucks.
Well, all right, so I'm Panthers.
So you're Packers. I'm gonna laugh so hard when Tampa wins that game. Texans, Titans in Tennessee. Tennessee, a 4-point favorite. C.J. Stroud not playing with the concussion. I'm guessing that is why that line is that way. I'm making an assumption there. I will double check that he has officially been ruled out. He's officially listed as doubtful. So you're looking at Davis Mills, and you know who the backup for Davis Mills is going to be?
Who?
Former Washington quarterback Case Keenum, baby. Yeah.
Wow. He's still in the league?
Yeah, I mean, Case Keenum, Houston Cougar legend. So I guess it makes sense that he's wrapping things up for his career down in Houston. Tennessee, 4-point favorites coming off that win over Miami where they pull it out. What a wild game that was, too, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not even like they came back and won it with, like, as time expired. They went from down 14 to up 1 in a minute and a half.
Yeah.
I'll go Tennessee in this one.
I'm going Tennessee as well. I want them to continue winning. You know, they picked up their 5th win, get that 6th win against
A little
an
more
injury.
draft cushion for the old Mandos.
Hey, look, that's all I'm thinking about, Craig. That's all I'm thinking about. So let's go Titans.
Jets, Dolphins. Jets at 5-8, by the way. Draft relevant for Washington. Miami, 9.5-point favorites after they suffered that horrendous loss last week. Obviously, Tyreek Hill, another week to get that ankle healthy after he missed part of the first half last week. I'm going to go with Miami on the road to get this divisional win. Or, sorry, Miami at home to get this divisional win.
Is Tyreek playing?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure because he had a little ankle injury that he sustained last game.
Yeah, but he came back in that game, and he's listed as questionable for this one.
Okay. I'm going to go with the Dolphins.
One thing that I think is worth watching, though, in terms of their performance these last couple of weeks, in terms of deciding how serious they are as contenders, is what happens on the interior of their offensive line. Their offensive line gets protected by their scheme a lot, something we talked about a lot before they played the Commanders. But they lost Connor Williams, their starting center, who was having a good year. So that's going to be interesting to watch moving forward. Chiefs, Patriots, 1, 2, 3. Chiefs. Giants, Saints, New Orleans, 5.5-point favorites over the red-hot Danny DeVito-led. God, I did it again. Tommy DeVito-led New York Giants. Can he take the Italian, whatever this is, on the road?
It's a great question, Greg. But I'm going with my brother from another mother, Derek Carr. David Carr. Derek Carr.
Derek Carr. A game so bad that we can't remember the quarterback's first names. We're sports talk professionals. Aw, yeah.
I'm going with the Saints, man. I think the jig is up, Craig. DeVito, he's had his time. It's up. They're going to come back down to earth. I'm going with the Saints.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the defense is too good. That eventually the Giants offense has to come back down to earth. Falcons, Panthers. How about this? Atlanta is only favored by 3 in this game. 3.
That's so random.
At Carolina, who, I cannot stress this enough, is a terrible football team.
Terry Blay.
We both taking Atlanta?
Yeah, I think this is a 1-2. I don't think I'll ever pick the Panthers.
I can't do a 1-2-3 on a game where there's a 3-point spread.
That's fair. I'm going with the Falcons.
So am I. 49ers and Cardinals. Actually, that's a divisional game. San Francisco is favored by 12. San Francisco's looked unstoppable. This does feel like I would take the Cardinals plus the points here, which I know sounds crazy because the Niners are killing everyone, but that's the kind of thing that happens in the NFL, which is why they air condition the desert. But straight up, San Francisco on the road. They're on that fast track indoors. Easy pick, obviously.
Yeah, I'm going with the 49ers. Fully healthy, fully staffed. There's no team in football today that's compete with them.
Commanders, Rams, 1, 2, 3.
Rams.
Yikes, man, that hurt. That didn't feel good.
Nope.
That didn't. We're short on time, so got to get it in. Cowboys, Bills, game of the weekend. 4:25. down or up in Buffalo. Cowboys not as good on the road. This is going to be interesting. Cowboys just 3-3 away from AT&T Stadium. Bills 5-2 at home. They're favored by 2.5, and the total in this game is 50.5. That is a high number. I'd probably still take the over unless the weather is going to be terrible.
It's going to be 49 degrees with some rain.
Feels like Buffalo Bills weather to me.
Yeah.
I'm taking Buffalo.
You're taking Buffalo?
This does not change what I feel about Dallas. I think they're legitimately dangerous. But I'm going to take Buffalo. Cowboys coming off a high. They've won how many straight games? They're due. Due theory.
This is your
They've won
theory.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row.
I think I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
Okay.
I would yell out how about them Cowboys, but I remember where you
don't,
are.
We don't need to turn heads like that.
Yeah.
Please. Behave yourself, sir.
I'm going with the boys.
Ravens, Jags. This game should be better. Ravens only favored by 3.5, but this game is in Jacksonville. Sunday nighter. Do things get weird, or does Baltimore just keep rolling?
I'm going with the Ravens. I don't think literally in every game that they've played, I think they've never truly been dominated. They've been doing the dominating.
Yeah.
So I think if the Jags do have a chance, they're gonna have to, score a little, put up some points, but
which I don't trust them to do at this point.
Yeah.
Like I just don't trust the Jags
at all.
So I'm picking the Ravens. And then Monday Night Football, Eagles travel to Seattle. They're 3-point favorites on the road against the Seahawks. I will take Philly to bounce back, get right. They've lost 2 in a row. I think there's opportunity for them to have a decent day against. Look, it's a tough matchup for them. They like to throw the ball outside of their receivers a ton. Seattle's secondary is fantastic. But I think that they get back to running the football. I think that can be done against Seattle. And then Seattle offensively, we'll see what they can do against a Philly defense that's got obviously some very good personnel and is probably a little ticked off with how the last couple of weeks have gone.
I think I'm going to go with the Seahawks.
Wow.
I think I'm going to go with the Seahawks. Philly's secondary is terrible, Craig.
It has not performed well as of late. You are correct on that.
I'm thinking again, a lot of these games are definitely styles, make fights kind of situations. But I think the Seahawks have the DBs to go out there and compete against Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown.
But I'm also like, their DBs are really good. And like Tariq Woolen's huge.
Yeah.
But can he match up like bulk-wise with A.J. Brown? We'll find out. Should be a fun one on Monday Night Football. Those are our picks. Next, we pick six commanders who we think will have the biggest impact on the game against the Rams. Then Dave Johnson joins us from upstairs at Capital One Arena at 6:15. It's the Hoffman Show, broadcasting live from the block party at District E on the Team 980. Always live on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. All right, just after 6 o'clock, broadcasting live from District E at Capital One Arena. I am Craig Hoffman. This is the Hoffman Show. Anthony Haney, super producer, back in our DC studios. And Fridays at 5 during the football season here on a Football Friday, presented by your local Honda dealer. We pick 6 commanders who we think can have a big role in the game. On Sunday, we call it our Pick 6.
The 6 biggest commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
I'm going to be their biggest and harshest critic, but I'm also their #1 fan.
All right, Anthony Haney, I shall allow you to pick first. We're gonna do this honestly. We're gonna do this as if this game matters, and we want the Commanders to win it and aren't more interested in draft position. Ready, set, go.
Number 1.
Number 1, I'm going to go with Sadiq Charles. I think possibly we'll see him back in the lineup. There's been no,
Rivera said today that he will play as a part of a rotation. So Chris Paul will probably start. Sadiq will rotate in, and however they mix that up, they'll do.
Yeah, so I'm expecting I just want to see him get back into the mix of things. I think he's going to have a tall task ahead of him. Aaron Donald, he sort of kind of picks out the weak link of the line. I think that left guard position is definitely one of the weaker on the line. So I think Sadiq Charles and Chris Paul will have their hands full. And I'm just expecting – I'm looking to see how Sadiq Charles gets back into the mix.
I'm going to write down Sadiq Charles / Chris Paul for you because I think that's actually where I was thinking about going first. Aaron Donald's not what he used to be, but he's still one of the 5 best guys at the position in the league and can still destroy your day. So very, very important to have that solidified up. So Sadiq and Chris, especially if they're in a rotation, being able to make things happen, super duper important. All right, on to the next one.
Number 2.
Emmanuel Forbes. He is back. That is good. He's going to have his hands full no matter who ultimately he winds up on, because you've got Cooper Kupp on one side and Puka Nacua on the other. These guys also do a lot, like Sean does a lot in terms of how he moves those receivers around. He does a lot with alignments and splits that creates really good angles for those guys as receivers. It looks very similar to what they do in the run game, so the play action's super effective, so your eye discipline becomes really important. And you better be involved in the run game, because if not, they'll get the edge on you and rip off big yards, because those guys, Nacua and Kupp, block their faces off. So big day for Emmanuel Forbes, perhaps the most important player not named Sam Howell for the Commanders over the next couple of weeks in terms of evaluation. And we will evaluate him against a pretty challenging opponent for opposing cornerbacks.
Number 3.
Number 3, Craig, you already know I have to have my coordinators in here, but this time I'm going to go with Eric Bieniemy. I got to have him in there, Craig. I'm going with Eric Bieniemy.
You actually don't. You could be more creative, but go ahead.
I can't necessarily choose the quarterback. So
I think on some weeks you can choose the quarterback and it makes more sense.
Yeah. I don't think this is one of those weeks, though. But I'm going to go with EB. I'm expecting the offense to be able to go out there and put up some points. Again, Sam Howell, he spoke earlier this week, and he said during the bye week, he got to, evaluate himself throughout the season. And quick game is where he's been most successful. So I'm expecting Eric Bieniemy to, listen to his quarterback, help him out, get Terry involved, get Jahan involved, get Curtis involved, and get that offense ultimately going. So I think a lot of eyes are going to be on EB.
Without question. All right, that leads actually to my next pick.
Number 3.
Nope.
Number 4.
There you go. Man, what a Hoffman Show moment that was. Math, hard. Jahan Dotson's my next pick. This Rams secondary can get exposed, and there will be space out there. So, obviously, Terry, we've talked about Terry all season when he's been in our pick 6 all season. Would like to see him get the ball more. But when we talk about young guys in the evaluation moving forward, if the next group wants to move on from Terry, theoretically they could. Jahan was a first-round pick last year, and it is time for him to have a strong close to the season and restore the faith that he can be a elite number 2 receiver. Not an elite receiver, an elite number 2 receiver in this league, along with a very good number 1, and obviously we'll see what happens in the future, but likely with Terry McLaurin for another couple of years here. So I want to see Jahan's turnaround get started. I would like to see him with the bye week and his legs underneath him just have a sharpness that we haven't seen all season from him, and that starts Sunday at 4:05 against the Rams.
Number 5.
Number 5, Craig, I'm going to go with Quan Martin. And part of the reason is Jamie Davis is going to be out. I think we're going to possibly see a lot of one linebacker sets where we have a whole bunch of DBs on the field. So I'm expecting Quan Martin to have an increased role. We'll see him blitz. We'll see him cover a little bit the tight ends. But I just want to see our 2023 draft picks out there, showing us or allowing us to evaluate what they can do and things of that nature. So I think Quan can have a big day on Sunday.
For sure. I agree with that. And along the same lines,
Number 6.
Chris Rodriguez is going to get the start. Brian Robinson is out. Like Antonio Gibson will be Antonio Gibson. I'd imagine they skew the carries a little bit heavier towards AG than they have when it's B-Rob. But Ron talked today about wanting Chris Rodriguez to be more involved. And so I think coming out of this bye, wanting to see some different things with the offense and game plan-wise, it makes sense. I would like to see some Chris Rodriguez heavier doses because I think he's been their best runner of the football this year. Not necessarily their best playmaker. B-Rob's been good in the past game, had a couple of explosives. He's had some really nice running games, and it's easier to be hyper-effective in super short doses. But if you're the guy, how do you handle it? And we'll find out with Chris Rodriguez. B-Rob out with that hamstring injury on Sunday. James Smith-Williams remains out as well. And they also, there was someone else they put on IR today. Anthony, do you remember?
Not off the top of my head.
Oh, it was Curtis Hodges, the backup tight end, who I was hoping to see, but we won't. He's going on IR, and that's what the roster spot they used to bring up Sadiq Charles. Okay, when we get back, Dave Johnson joins us from upstairs here at Capital One Arena, gives us our first view of this new Boundary Stone-inspired court, and we'll talk a little ball. How can the Wizards compete with the offensively mighty Indiana Pacers tonight? It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live on the free Odyssey app, and we are streaming live on YouTube. The Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. We now on a Wizards game days. We're broadcasting live from District E, Capital One Arena at Gallery Place. Head upstairs and check in with our main man, Dave Johnson. Anthony, let's get Dave a proper introduction, shall we?
Time to get the radio party started.
Blocked by Bilal Coulibaly. Oh boy, did he stuff him. Left wing pull, it's there. Oh, that's a pool party. Near the basket, slam right there. And there, they're stealing the slam. You better go off. Intercepted by Kispert. Kispert now, foul line. Oh, slam. Ooh, that'll jar your preserves.
It's time for Dave Johnson on a Wizards game day.
Kuzma for three. Oh, it's there. It's there. Big shot.
On the Hoffman Show.
Hey, you better go off.
All right, upstairs we go at Capital One Arena. And Dave, I will warn you, there's a potential that a concert breaks out behind me at some point soon. The sound checks are coming to an end, and we're about to have a live performance. So there's no telling what's happening down here downstairs.
Yeah, well, you know that feeling that I have. Is it that you hear the PA system, probably hear Monumental at Capital One Arena. So, but that's true professional broadcasters. We fight through noise and deliver the noise to our listeners.
We try our best, and for those watching on YouTube, they're just going to see me mashing my headphones into my ears to make sure that I can hear over whatever is about. I'm sure the music will be great. I'm excited to hear the performance. It's just I'd be more excited if I wasn't trying to talk to you. Also, normally when you're at home, you're on the Comrex. I got to ask, can we get a Dave cam for the YouTube audience? How do we get a Dave cam set up?
That's true. I should have been on the Comrex, I guess, right? I've been out of practice with this.
It's true. You guys have been on the road so much, you forgot how we do this.
I know. I forgot. I'm sorry. That's my fault.
That's okay.
My fault. Yeah, but anyway, yes, no, and that's a technological advancement that our listeners should know about the Comrex. But and you know, when you were talking about, I mean, you're on YouTube. You're at District E, a concert about to start. I mean, this is not your father's radio. I mean, there's so many options and so many ways, and the Odyssey app to listen and watch and look. I was just say it's a lot of fun, and that's what we're looking for tonight. Is just these are two teams, the Wizards and Pacers. Not a lot of defense if you look at the numbers on the season. So I think somebody said it's the highest over/under in NBA history, according to the betting folks or whatever. Because the Pacers score about 128 a game, and the Wizards, look, offense has not been the problem. So there could be a lot of scoring tonight.
That is for sure, but you also dodged the question. I do want to circle back to the game, Dave, but can we get a Dave cam when you're at home?
Yes, no,
okay.
we absolutely. We got to get to work on that. Tim Parker, we're going to get our engineer, and he's on the phone. And he said, "Don't bother me, I'm working."
Okay.
No, but we'll get a Dave cam so you can see exactly what's going on in our broadcast position in 216, which we always invite folks to stop by and say hello to us.
Yes. All right. Love that. Now we got the commitment of Dave cam. Anthony, we're going to have to figure out how we can actually make that work, because I just realized that unless I'm doing the show from home, we typically can't have video guests live. So I've just made a commitment. I've written a check that my behind cannot cash, but that's okay. I'll figure it out because we've got the commitment from Dave. You did mention, Dave, this game tonight, there is going to be a ton of points scored. What's been your impression of Tyrese Halliburton's emergence, not just this year where it seems like everyone's paying attention, but the last couple of years as he has turned into this player that now everyone realizes he is because of the highlight of the NBA's in-season tournament?
Well, yeah, no, and you hit the nail on the head. I think everybody now is realizing what Tyrese Halliburton is all about because he was in that in-season tournament. So it turned out to be a great showcase for him, and by that matter, the Pacers as well. As again, this is a team that's been going through a rebuilding phase. They have the top 5 picks, I think, of the 2020 draft are on their roster. So Rick Carlisle and company, they're now arrived at a situation at 13-9. They get in the finals of the NBA in-season tournament. That they believe they're ready to compete. But a big piece of that is the acquisition of Tyrese Halliburton. So what I'm saying is it shows a roadmap that the Wizards, as we look to improve and go to the promised land of sustained success. It's about drafting right. It's about making the right moves, getting the right players in position. And all sports are like that. It's fit and opportunity. And it's been a perfect fit and a great opportunity for Tyrese Halliburton. And, his offensive numbers are staggering. And, quite frankly, adding to the challenge tonight, the Wizards are continuing, I should say, not probably, are continuing to miss probably their two best perimeter defenders in DeLon Wright and Landry Shamet. Now, I don't mean to insinuate that if they were healthy, the Wizards would have a winning record. What I'm saying is you can't discount when you lose your two best perimeter defenders at the same time. That has an impact on the team overall defensively, and it's going to add to the challenge tonight against Indiana.
No doubt about it. Dave Johnson is with us from upstairs at Capital One Arena. We are downstairs at District E as the block party is tuning up. Performance getting ready to go here in just a few minutes, as you might hear the band warming up in the background. Dave, by the way, I just did a quick Google search while you were talking there as I was listening to you. This is, I believe, the highest point total over-under-wise in NBA history, and I think it's like the fourth time this season that the Pacers have set that. They set it against the Bucks in the in-season tournament semifinal. It was like 257.5. Tonight's total is 260.5. So they're expecting a roughly 131 to 130 game tonight.
Well, let's hope it's that close. Well, yeah, that's what we want. That's for sure.
I guess that's true. I should have looked at the spread too and then done that math.
No, well, but my point being is that it's the last couple of games, New Orleans, Philadelphia, et cetera. Have been punches in the face, and they not showing the ability to compete that they quite frankly showed in previous games against the Sixers, against the Bucks, or whatever we want to talk about. So. Look, they're going to have to bring it tonight because, again, you mentioned the numbers. It's an express train that's suddenly the talk of the NBA, the Indiana Pacers, with the way they play. Now, the flip side of that, and that's why the over-under is where it is, they're not strong defensively. They give up the most points in the paint in the NBA at about 62 points in the paint a game. And the Wizards, that has been a strong point attacking the paint, so they need to do that tonight. So that's a case where, you hope for a tight, high-scoring thriller because it certainly could end up that way, the way both these teams play. I talked to some of the Indiana folks, and they say it's exciting, et cetera, but is it sustainable to be a real threat in the playoffs when you've got some weaknesses on defense, which the Pacers clearly have, and that defense is such a factor in all sports. I mean, you think about and on our Wizards pregame, we were playing the highlights of Gilbert Arenas' 60-point game because it was on this date back in 2006, I believe. He scored that against the Lakers, and that was a Wizards team that could outscore anybody. The problem is it struggled to make stops at critical moments. So. Defense has to be a part of your identity to really have success in the NBA. That's something, for all the glowing talk about the Pacers and Tyrese Halliburton, that's something they still have to get better on. And they've got a coach in Rick Carlisle that's got a defensive reputation, but it hasn't translated on the floor yet for the Pacers.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I covered Rick when I was down in Dallas and he was there, and he has the defensive reputation, but those Dallas teams offensively were juggernauts. He's tough, but I would actually I think if you really look at him, the way he coaches offense is so brilliant. I think he's so good at getting pace going and understanding where the strength of his players are. So it's always fun to watch a Rick Carlisle team, and we'll get to do that tonight here at Capital One Arena. Dave, thanks as always for the time, sir. I guess we'll have to wait to unveil Dave Cam because we'll talk to you next week from the West Coast, yeah?
Yeah, it'll be a late-night Dave Cam next week. So I guess, we'll have to wait. I can still talk to you during the week, so we could have maybe Dave Hotel Cam because I won't have left for the game by the time we typically do this at 6:15 Eastern.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll have our people call your people. All right, Dave, thanks so much. I think you're still there, but now the band is playing, and I can't hear anything, so it's also time for us to break. So have a great call, and I'll talk to you next week. All right, and Dave's gone. There we go. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We have one more segment, which will be backed by a band, which is sweet. We're live at the block party, which is fully underway here at District E. And Real Things is next.
The Washington Wizards play.
A Friday on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Broadcasting live from District E, where the block party is underway. Front porch performing right now. So great time. Good food here, by the way, at District E, if you ever come down before a game. So Anthony, earlier today, explain to me why we're doing this. You were at a spelling bee?
Yeah, so my other gig that I do, I worked out on my middle school, and we had our annual spelling bee today. Granted, I never got to participate in it. It came 1 year after I graduated.
Oh,
but
that's
today,
a bummer.
Yeah, I know. We had our spelling bee, and some of the words that they were spelling, Greg, I'm trying to tell you, they were some tough ones, like regular words.
I mean, I'm willing to give it a shot if you got a couple of them.
I do have a couple.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
First one, Albuquerque.
Capital A.
Yep.
Because it's a proper noun. It's a proper noun. Albuquerque. A-L-B. God, I'm so much better if I write stuff down.
Just use your hand. Use your
I know,
hand.
it's like A-L-B-E-Q-U-E-R-Q-U-E.
Sir? Sorry, that was wrong, Craig.
Dang
you missed it by one letter. It's A-L-B-U. You said A-L-B-E.
Damn! Albuquerque's got a U in it?
Yes. I'll give you one more.
Okay, we might. I'm willing to go until I get one right. So we'll be here until 9 o'clock tonight.
All right, here we go. Easy one. Wheezy.
Like as in someone. Can I have the definition, please?
Oh, you put me on the spot. Wheezy. Wheezy is making the sound of a person wheezing. That is
a terrible definition. Wheezy.
Yes.
Lilwayne.
Say it one more time.
Bro, seriously?
No, I mean, I think you spelled it wrong. That's why.
It was a joke. I spelled Lil Wayne.
Oh.
Jesus Christ. Wheezy. W-H-E-E-Z-Y. Wheezy.
Yes. I gave you an easy one.
You did. Wheezy was easy.
Yes.
You got one more?
Yes. Contemptible.
You have to be able to say it for me to spell it.
Contemptible. Yes.
May I have the definition, please?
That's contemptible. It means deserving of contempt or scorn.
Enough with the word in the definition, although in this case it's actually helpful. Contemptible. May I have the language of origin, please?
The language of origin?
I'm just doing spelling bee jokes.
Oh, this is a Latin. Old French.
Oh, okay. Oui. If it's Latin, you'll know who'd be great at this? Rachel. Because, of course, my wife damn near double majored in Latin.
Latin is I like Latin.
It's a dead language.
Didn't
stop her. It does help. Contemptible. C-O-N-T-E-M-P-T-A-B-L-E. Contemptible.
Sorry, that is wrong.
What?
It's T-I-B-L-E, not A. Are you smarter than a fifth grader, Craig?
I mean, in a lot of things. I don't think in spelling, especially the good ones.
Man, I'm trying to tell. I was so.
All right, give me. I want to get like a not easy one right. Can you give me one more? It's my last chance.
All right, here we go. Inscrutable.
May I have the definition, please?
Yes. Impossible to understand or interpret. Inscrutable.
Oh, now I'm in my own head. Because I would have spelled it one way until you gave me contemptible, and now, like I-N-S-C-R-U-T. And then is it I-B-L-E or A-B-L-E? I'm going to go with I-B-L-E and learn my lesson from contemptible.
Sir,
inscrutable.
That is wrong.
Is it A-B-L-E?
Yes.
Son of a biscuit! I knew that. I was like, I know this word. I can spell it. And then I got so in my...
Man, they had me too, Craig. That's how I was sitting down. Like, one kid said A, another kid said that's right. That's wrong. Couldn't believe it.
Ding. I'm so mad at you. It totally... my Lil Wayne joke just right over your head.
Yeah, it definitely did. It went right over my head.
It's so sad. God, that was quality content. All right, that's most of our show. We still have real things in a moment. Monday, we will get started with 1st and 10 for the Commanders game. We'll have John Thompson III next week. JT3 was going to stop by today, but the timing didn't wind up working out in terms of everything going on schedule-wise. So JT3, though, is going to join us next week talking about how this Wizards move, specifically out of D.C., leaves DC behind, and his perspective on that as someone who has grown up as John Thompson III but also works for Monumental Basketball. So we'll discuss that with JT3 next week. Anything else, Anthony, that we should go ahead and get ahead of for next week?
No, I think that's everything.
Okay. See y'all again Sunday, of course. Take Command pregame show live, MGM National Harbor, 1 o'clock. But we wrap up this here edition of the Hoffman Show with real things real people said into real microphones.
Real things. Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right, a couple of basketball-adjacent real things to wrap up the show, starting with Michael Porter Jr. on Trae Young's podcast, which is apparently a thing, wondering aloud after seeing some video of Luka Doncic, hey, are you trying to copy my shot?
Did Luka emulate your shot, man, overnight? I don't know if he was trying to emulate my shot. It looked like it, though. Seen that. Oh, he may have. I think a couple of my teammates said it too. And then I seen the comments, they were like, oh, he emulated like Porter's game. He ain't gonna get no assist no more. So that had me weak, too. But that's funny because he shoots it like he just barely jumps. So I saw that clip and it was pretty It was definitely imitating you.
That's really funny. They might have the two most opposite shots in the league. MPJ gets like 2 feet off the ground every jumper. Luka doesn't jump over 1 page of the phone book.
It's also the fact that people were in the comments saying he never get any assists because Michael Porter Jr. rarely ever has any assists.
No, that is definitively not his game. Yeah, he's got one job, shoot, and he takes it very seriously. What else we got? There's one more bite. I've forgotten what it is, Anthony. What else we got?
The other one was Speedy Mormon, who was up Syracuse. He was on with Complex, and he had Anthony Edwards on his show.
Okay.
And he basically gets compared to Michael Jordan all the time, and Anthony Edwards basically responded to, the Michael Jordan comparisons.
Pat Bev. Great guy. He said that he could be the next Michael Jordan.
I just want him to stop. Yeah.
Why?
Just because he's the greatest to ever play basketball. And I'm so far from it.
But if that era was today, do you feel like MJ could guard you?
Hell no. No.
You know, he is one of the, they say one of the greatest defensive players.
Yeah, no.
Why? Do you see flaws in, like when you look at him defensively?
I'm not looking for that. I just don't think he can guard me.
Would he get off too, or would it be a locker room?
Man, he gonna do his thing, but it's gonna be a tough night.
Pat Bev.
He was so close to being right. He was so close to just saying he's the greatest ever, and I'm not like. I think that there are certain players from the past who would absolutely not be nearly as good in the modern NBA because they couldn't keep up athletically. And like MJ's game would have to change because the way they shoot threes and stuff now, like the game is just different. But that dude is one of the greatest physical freaks to ever walk the planet. He was 6'6", 218 pounds, with a 44-inch vertical jump, hands the size of a 7-footer, quickness and agility at like he would be one of the best players at next year's NFL Combine when he was in his prime. Like he would break stuff. He would not have any problem with Anthony Edwards. All due respect to Anthony Edwards, who's awesome. Like MJ defensively in his prime, like made dudes cry. I mean,
I think Anthony Edwards. I think what he was saying is, like, he's such a gifted scorer that as good defensively as MJ was, he's still gonna get his regardless.
Well, that's the thing. Is like, if you want to make that argument, like, can you guard me? I don't think anybody can guard me. Like, okay, he's doing the elite player thing, but to be like, no, he couldn't. No, like MJ has as good of a chance as anyone. Yeah, that's kind of the point. All right, that is our show for today. We'll see you guys back Monday, 4 o'clock. You missed any part, check it out on YouTube or the podcast. Have a great weekend, everybody.
This is is your official home.
Good gracious.